News.
A 7-year-old boy
To hear that little boy scream out for his daddy.
abducted in broad daylight.
For a little while, you thought about hurting that kid.
That's a lot.
Prosecutors say the kidnappers planned to rob a drug dealer,
He did not have the intent to kidnap this child. He was essentially the driver.
but ended up holding her child for ransom.
You could have easily said, don't take that kid.
This week on Open Record, how a search for the boy led to gunshots,
You could literally help somebody and still be a target.
and why experts say this dramatic abduction is unlike almost any other. From the FOX6 studios, this is Open Record. I'm Brian Polson. I am joined by Open Record's executive producer, Sarah Smith. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
And we are joined once again by FOX6's Bria Jones. Thank you for being here, Bria.
Thank you both for having me.
We are recording this episode on Wednesday, July 23rd. As of today, 3 adults and 1 juvenile have been charged with crimes in connection to a brazen daytime kidnapping of a 7-year-old boy in Milwaukee, a dramatic crime that was caught on camera. The boy's mother is still in custody, but where is the 7-year-old now? And how does this crime fit into what we know about kidnappings in America? All of that and much more right after this.
We are back on Open Record. This all started back on July 11th when 2 adults and a teenager allegedly set out to rob someone they called a known drug dealer. So, Bria, can you walk us through? You've covered this for us. Can you talk about a little bit about what happened and how that led to a child literally being snatched off the street in broad daylight?
You know, I was at home. I just got off work. It was maybe a little before midnight when we all received that Amber Alert notification. Obviously, hours before that, MPD had already issued their missing persons alert. But again, we have this 7-year-old boy who was outside of his father's home, literally riding his bicycle, which we could see in surveillance videos that we were able to get. But we know from the criminal complaint that the 2 adult and the teen accused in this kidnapping, they said they were out to rob the boy's mother, who they say is a well-known drug dealer. The Corey Williams, who said he was the driver and all of this, says that he saw on FaceTime the mom with bricks of drugs behind her, as well as a lot of money. And so that is what they were after. They went to her home. They didn't see her. That's when they went to the boy's father's home, and they saw him and the father outside of the house. And that's the dramatic video that we saw the abduction in.
One of the reasons I wanted to do this as a podcast episode is because so much of the facts so many of the facts have been filtering out over time, and then a new criminal charge or a new person charged each day, one of them a juvenile, and we're getting these bits and pieces. But I wanted to put it all together because when you really, I mean, this is like out of a movie.
It is.
What happened here. It's
Yes.
remarkable. But I also think for a minute about if this had happened 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, it would not have ended the way it did.
Right? Social media, there are so many social media detectives, which in our line of work, we either love or hate them, if we're being honest, because we have a lot of people who may not know all of the facts, but they're going off of truths, things that they perceive to be truth. So we have our social media investigators. This case obviously captivating not only Milwaukee, but I have my mother, my father who live out of state, people reaching out to me who are nowhere near Milwaukee, like, hey, where is the 7-year-old boy? My church had a search. People were going out and searching. That's where we're going to get into the volunteers that went to Houston to help search.
Turned into a whole other story.
I know
that we will talk
turned
about.
into a whole other story. But again, so many people, hey, this is what we know, or this is people are releasing information on Facebook, and then we were finding out days later. But we have the father, we have other family members actively on social media. Hey, bring back my nephew. Hey, this person came and snatched, my 7-year-old, and this is the car that they're in. So that was initially, I saw the Amber Alert. I immediately get on Facebook. I see someone saying, hey, my nephew was kidnapped today, and this is the kind of car that he was in. And then we get piecing together the evidence where MPD says in the criminal complaint, they were actually able to go through, looking through the vehicle, and they were able to see in their database the license plate, because when the kidnapping happened, there was no license plate on the vehicle, but they were able to go through their system, their database showed the license plate. They were able to connect
the flock
that
camera system,
yes.
right? Which is another element here. When I talk about this wouldn't have been solved this way 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, they actually, if you read the criminal complaints,
Yes.
the ultimate kidnappers allege they're charged, but they say they didn't intend to kidnap a child
Yes.
going in, but they did know they were going to commit a crime, so they took the license plate off the vehicle.
Yeah.
But with this current technology, they were able to find what I think is referred to in the search warrant or criminal complaint as something about, features of the vehicle. We know that Flock can detect things like roof racks and bumper stickers and damage. So they were able to take the vehicle with no license plate, and that's what you're telling us. They were able to then match it to a vehicle earlier the same day.
Yes, that led them to a woman working on Water Street who said, hey, my boyfriend had my Jeep, my white Jeep, during the time of this abduction. And she led them. She had his phone, I believe, saved as Honey Pie, according to one of the warrants. And she had his location. They were then able to go to Corey Williams' sister's house. And at the sister's home, they found him in the attic and the boy in the house. He said he had been, I think Corey, he said, got him allegedly some McDonald's that morning. He had been watching cartoons. He had been
like
playing
playing
Legos.
Legos, right? Yeah, okay.
While the whole city was out
Is like in a
frantically
panic, yeah.
searching for him. So it was just a lot to consume.
Which I guess on the one hand is good news to know that he was treated well while he
Yes.
was there, because kidnapped
Yeah.
children,
Well-
especially stranger kidnappings, don't always result in a child being treated
Well, and it's not
so
like
well.
we even heard like, oh, we know that it's their dad, or it's,
Yeah.
the stranger aspect of it, like elevated it even more. Where it's one thing, I think, if you're like, oh, they were last seen with their dad and their dad
Very
allegedly
common.
took them.
Yes.
Yeah. A parent or something. But for this, I think it just elevated everyone's like
Yes. And it was that
intensity about it.
immediate ring camera where you could hear him
Yes.
screaming, "Daddy,
Yes.
Daddy." And that, I think that's what drew people in, because
That was
Yeah.
remarkable and awful when you
Yes.
hear the cries of a 7-year-old boy,
Right.
"Daddy, Daddy," knowing he's being snatched
Right.
literally right off the street. I think that also led to some real criticism on social media of the father, right?
Yes,
Because
it
he
did.
runs into the house as his boy's being taken away.
he does. And, this is just going off of social media. The father has been vocal about this case on his Facebook page, but he was more so saying on his page that, hey, my son, he's still alive. He did what I told him to do, which is run. And, he was saying he didn't know what they were out to get. But then you have those people that are saying, you're not exactly parent of the year, because you can see someone running in the house. You guys ran in opposite directions and you closed the door. So we have a lot of criticism from the father, but he's saying, I didn't know what the intent was. I was just trying to, get out of there. And,
He thinks they're after me. They're going to shoot me.
he didn't think
He's
they were
just
going to
trying
take the baby.
Right.
So there's so many things to talk about, but one of the things I think is important here, and I want our listeners and our viewers to know this. You've noticed we're not using the 7-year-old's name, and that's intentional, because he did survive, thankfully. This is a child who's a victim of a felony crime. And so we don't want to identify that victim, even though early on when he was missing his name and face and everything were all over television.
Right.
We've made the effort, or the concerted effort and decision as a newsroom, that we're not going to continue to further victimize this 7-year-old. But it is obviously something that his relatives, there's some
Yes.
questions here, because, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this as well, Bria. Once the police find the 7-year-old boy in Corey Williams' place, you imagine if, in fact, the mother and father are just innocent victims and there's nothing wrong here, they'd be reunited.
And that is
But that has not happened.
Yeah, that has not happened. And I think looking at the criminal complaint, we have the alleged driver in this, Corey Williams, his phone records show that he called the mom star 67 40 times. And then when detectives were interviewing the little boy at the hospital, he told them that he heard his mother on the phone with one of the alleged kidnappers, and that his mom said she would pick him up. And the officer
And then never
noted
did, yeah.
that the boy started tearing up talking about that, because his mother never came. And now we know she is in custody.
What we don't know is why she's in custody. We do know she had a 2021 criminal conviction, and there's a probation hold, right, for a probation violation. Is that related to the alleged drug dealing? We don't know. Is it somehow? But the question that was one of the reasons I want to talk about this here, the question it raised for me early on was, well, wait a minute. Do they think she was in on this? But I don't know that we've gotten any indication that's the case. The 40 phone calls, if they were using star 67, they're hiding their identity.
Yes.
We're anonymous kidnappers who have your child, not, hey, guess our plan's working out. So do we know if she had any knowledge of what was going on here, or what her role was in this?
I mean, at this point, what they're saying, that they know she was impeding their investigation. She was at the kidnapping scene. She left. Police say they tried to reach her multiple times. no response, no contact.
This is the mother of a kidnapping victim.
So she's leaving the kidnapping scene and not communicating with them and telling them that she has no idea of what's going on. But the phone records indicate otherwise. There was communication between her and multiple of the people, the 3 people involved in this situation. And it goes into, we're kind of wondering in the newsroom, what's the relationship between the 14-year-old and her? Because it kind of seems that, he's the one that they're saying kind of spearheaded this kidnapping effort.
For those who don't know anything about this, real quickly, so 23-year-old Corey Williams is driving the vehicle that is seen on video driving away with the boy. He is not the one who grabs the boy off the street, though. It's a 14-year-old who is one of the accomplices, according to police, right? And this 14-year-old grabs, it's from what we can tell from reading search warrants and criminal complaints, this was a spontaneous decision.
Yes.
Is that right? They hadn't even planned to rob the father. Their plan was to rob the mother.
They couldn't find her, right?
They couldn't find her. So they went to her home. She's not there. They go to dad's house off of Eustis, and they're there. And the dad, you can see in the video, in the surveillance video, the car, I believe it's a Camry, but there's a silver sedan that pulls up. You see the boy pulling into the yard. Then you see 2 people jumping out of the car. We're told they were masked and armed. The little boy told detectives someone snatched him by the shirt and drug him to the car. So that's where we know that we got the 14-year-old. And Corey Williams, when he appeared in court, his attorney saying this was not a part of the plan. He did not want this to happen. But then we had the court commissioner.
Oh, court commissioner didn't let him get away with everything.
He didn't let him get away with anything.
The
The ADA was basically like, hey, I've never seen anybody with convictions or cases in every nearby county. And the court commissioner said, I agree. I don't ever think I've seen this before. So this
It wasn't just that. He said, maybe you didn't plan to take the kid, but you didn't have to drive away.
He's like, you're the driver. You could have said, no, we're not taking this kid,
let that kid
away from
go,
the
yeah.
street, And then not even only you're driving away with him, but then you take him to your home. And once this Amber Alert is issued and they're not getting the response from the mother because they demanded $100,000 in jewelry. And at this point in time, mom's not responding to these Star 67 calls, and they leave the boy alone at the house with Corey Williams.
I know
Right.
we've got to get through a lot here. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No,
What I want to say is there's one other person who we've talked about, Corey Williams. There's the 14-year-old we're not naming because he's a juvenile, and a third co-conspirator, and that is
Fabian Johnson.
Fabian Johnson. And Fabian Johnson's role was, so far as we know?
As far as I know, he was the one, he ran after the dad. And so they were able to connect him to this case with a red Solo cup that was seen on surveillance video with, that they found inside of the car.
So there's Fabian Johnson goes after the dad. We've got Corey Williams, the driver, the getaway driver, or whatever it is. And then you have the 14-year-old boy who grabs the kid. I mentioned 3 adults had been charged. There's one other adult who was charged in connection with this case, but not for the kidnapping. Well, we'll talk about why that happened. Plus, we're going to talk about what is happening or where is this 7-year-old boy. We'll do all that when we come right back. All right, we are back on Open Record. The alleged kidnappers are charged. 2 adults, 1 juvenile. Let's talk for a minute about the boy's family. We mentioned the mother is currently in custody on a probation hold, and we don't know if she's going to be charged. She hasn't yet been in connection with the kidnapping, right?
Yeah, that's true. I did reach out to the sheriff's office just yesterday. I was trying to see what more we could learn about this case, but I have not gotten a response back. When I reached out to the DA's office told me that, this case is still pending review. So we could potentially see those charges, but we do know from that booking report that it was some sort of child neglect as well as that VOP hold.
And that'll come into play in a minute when we talk about where the 7-year-old is now. But I want to talk about the other person who's been charged, because this is just remarkable. If this wasn't a dramatic enough thing, it's caught on. How often? I don't know how long you've been in news, Sarah. I've been a long time. Have you ever seen a kidnapping caught on camera?
No.
In broad daylight?
It's always the after, or the vehicle is driving away and we only caught one shot of it in the back or something.
We actually see the child. You hear the child. We have all of this stuff. And then another thing that's caught on camera is this the next day?
Yes.
The next day,
morning.
the community says, this is crazy. We want to help.
Yeah,
we want to come
everywhere.
search. And a father and son show up in the neighborhood to try to help search for this boy. What happened?
I couldn't even believe it when I saw it. This dad says he and a 16-year-old, they were getting coffee. They were like, hey, we heard that boy yelling, daddy, daddy. We need to do something.
And these are just community members,
These
right?
are just community members.
Okay.
They're just like, hey, we want to help in any way possible, Sarah. So they get there and they do circle the block, which I can understand.
They're trying to figure out where did this happen.
They're like,
Where's
where
the
did this
house?
happen? Are we in the right area? And, Dad tells me that he sees most, we know because we work in news, most news vehicles tend to be white. So they see a white car, they're slowing down like, oh, is this the car? But it's another news station. So they're getting ready to park to get out to approach the family because other people are there. And next thing you know, someone starts shooting towards them. And it is the uncle of that little boy.
That is Jamel White, the uncle who you see him on camera shooting, like kind of ducking between some houses coming at you. What was he? Did he think this was the kidnappers coming back? If so, wouldn't you be worried? The boys in the car. I don't know what was going on there.
You know, looking at the criminal complaint, Jamel White, he tells authorities he was scared. He was worried for his family's safety. When I talked to the dad who was shot at, he's like, I can understand that, but I was not posing a threat to you. I was not even near your home at the time. I'd never even got out of the car. So he's saying for you to just come at me like that, you could have taken my child's life.
Yeah, he had his boy in the car because a teenage son who was with him, and they just got out of there. And so I think
they just left.
He said something about the taste it leaves in his mouth for trying to do a good thing to try to help.
Yes.
And he became a target. So now you also have the uncle of the victim who's charged. So it's a mess.
It is very messy. Milwaukee, this case captivating the nation, and then Milwaukee is just exploding because there's so much to unpack here. Like you said, this is kind of like a made-for-TV movie at this point. Like this is a crime that's just like, I can't believe that this happened.
Well, and it's like, it's the keeping track of everything too. And, and for us as we, work through and we want to get the details correct. So it's like, okay, this person is this. It's like one of those scenes where they're trying to connect with all the strings of like, who's connected to whom and how. So
that's why I want to go back to the start for a second, just to reassess here. If based on what we know, you have the 2 adults and the 14-year-old, that is Fabian Johnson, Corey Williams, and then the 14-year-old. According to law enforcement, they're plotting to rob Siobhan Williams, who is the mother of the boy, because they've seen her either on social media or somewhere.
They saw her on FaceTime.
On
so that
FaceTime.
It's like,
now, was she like, we see some people, they're flexing their stacks of cash or their drugs, or do they just happen to see it in the background? Do we know?
If from the criminal complaint, it says that Corey Williams saw on FaceTime bricks of drugs and money.
And they say, okay, well, we're going to go rob her.
Yes.
And then, as we said, they make this plan. They remove the license plate. So there's advanced planning. This is what we're going to do. They don't find her. They do find the father, but they happen to find him at the same time the boy's on the bicycle.
Exactly. That's
the father
when
runs. They grab the kid.
Someone goes rogue and snatches the kid. Thankfully, the child is okay and was found safe.
I keep coming back to the fact that the license plate reader, they didn't have a plate on the car, but it still helped them find the same vehicle with the plate on earlier. That plate led them to the girlfriend who led them to Corey Williams.
Could you imagine
and found the boy?
That girlfriend's like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
like
he's at work.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She's just minding her business, or allegedly, I don't know, whatever.
How long might he have been there?
Right.
What might have happened in the interim? And I think there was something that came up. This was a pretty interesting exchange in court. Corey Williams, because the judge says at one point you thought about harming him.
Yes.
And he says that's a lie. Maybe you must not have watched it then. Well, you don't often hear a defendant talk back in a preliminary hearing, but he did.
He did, and you could see it on the judge's face. And this is a well-known court commissioner. We know him. He's very, very outspoken. But again, we have Corey Williams' criminal history, and the court commissioner says, hey, you maybe thought about harming this child. It's on tape. And he's like, no, you're lying. Looking at the criminal complaint, maybe the lines are a little blurred, but it does say that conversations took place because they were thinking about showing the mother they were serious. So I think
they still wanted their $100,000 in jewelry and the cash or whatever it was, according to what's in the criminal complaint. The last thing I want to talk about before we get to our guest is, again, where is the 7-year-old? Because they have not the parents have not been reunited with this boy. What do we know about that at this point?
The last I heard from Milwaukee police, they say that the boy was released to Child Protective Services. I've been in contact with them. They can't confirm as an agency, they cannot confirm or deny whether or not a child or a family is involved in an investigation. But I did ask them for their process. They're called through mandated reporters, which could be police officers who are on the scene saying, hey, this 7-year-old boy is crying, saying that he heard his mother on the phone with his kidnappers and she never came. And she did not tell us at any point that she had any communication. And so it's
that's what she had obstructed, they said, right? Yeah.
So it's unclear at this point where the child is, but we last know that the child was in in CPS custody.
And you said there were pending charges for child neglect. Is that
Yes,
what it
that's
shows
what
in
the
the
booking
system?
sheet
That's what the booking
shows
sheet
for
shows.
Siobhan Williams.
And neglect is one of the reasons that
Yes.
CPS would get involved. Is that
Yes.
right? So we don't know what the future of that holds. Obviously, there's a lot still to come as these criminal complaints or these cases unfold. But I step back from all of it again and I say, it took we cover crimes every day.
Yes.
And sometimes you go, wait a minute, this is unlike almost anything else I've seen. And I've been in news for a long time, but this is
and
pretty rare.
even just the response, looking at my social media throughout the course of that Amber Alert, it wasn't just my TV friends that were like, do you know anything? I mean, other friends that, maybe don't know that I'm what I do or that I'm acquaintances with, but they were like sharing it and they were, horrified by what that Ring video showed. I just think the interest and the worry really spanned further than just
Because to
our job.
Brian's point, you don't get everything, and there's so much surveillance video showing exactly what happened. Usually things are pixelated or it cuts off, like you said, right before or right after. But you see everything, and that scream was very chilling, and I think that just connected and sent off something just around the country. And now this child has to live with this.
The ending of this, obviously, with the child being found by police, being okay, is obviously wonderful news. It's not always the case, especially when it comes to stranger abductions. There are a lot of kids that are reported missing, hundreds of thousands reported missing every year. It is not many who are actually abducted by strangers, but we're going to talk to an expert who knows all about that. When we come back after the break, we are going to be joined by John Bischoff, who's with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We'll talk to him when we come right back. Welcome back to Open Record. We have a special guest who is with us here today, and I'm really grateful that he's able to make the time for us. John Bischoff, who is with the Missing Children's Division of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. John, thank you for being here on Open Record.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Right off the bat, I point out Missing Children's Division. There are missing children, there are exploited children. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has really grown over the years, right?
We have. We've been around since 1984, quite a bit of time, and since that time, Bree, you were mentioning it. So much has changed over the years in the way children go missing, and honestly, how we search for them and how they're found. That we as an organization have evolved with that over time to what we are today.
I think I want to start with this question because I think I saw an FBI statistic. More than 460,000 children are reported missing every year. I don't know exactly how many of those come to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, but it's hundreds of thousands of kids. But they're not all like this. Sometimes I think we imagine that every child reported missing has been snatched off the street. That's not the case, right?
No, you're absolutely right. That is not the case. Every year, children entered into NCIC, the National Crime Information Center, the FBI system, between 300,000 and 400,000 around there. We assist with around 30,000 of those missing child cases each year. The way the cases are broken down, some are listed as endangered runaways, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. Family abductions, lost, injured, or otherwise missing. Basically, no one knows what happened to the child. They're just not where they're supposed to be. And non-family abductions, which is certainly what you had up in Milwaukee.
I think one of the things that with the case here in Milwaukee, and then just the question for you is, social media played a huge role in the spreading of information, good, bad, or otherwise. How has social media for you guys helped or hurt your efforts?
Overall, I'd say it's helped us. But I totally understand what you're saying and certainly agree with you that social media can be a double-edged sword. It can be a blessing and a curse. Absolutely a catalyst for rumors and misinformation. One of the things that we recommend to the public constantly is follow trusted sources for your key information about any missing child case. Follow the law enforcement agency, follow the state clearinghouse, follow us at the National Center, news media outlets, follow trusted sources, because if you're just going off the rumor mill, odds are pretty good you're going to have false information.
Bria mentioned earlier Amber Alert involved in this case, and Amber Alerts have certainly changed the way we respond to missing children, certainly when there's an immediate danger that is posed. But most often, it seems to me, when we hear an Amber Alert, we do hear that, or there's some indication that it's the father who has the child, or the mother who has the child, or an uncle or a cousin. It is a family member. How often are you actually dealing with situations where it is a non-family member, or in this case, a total stranger who has taken a child?
So the when you take a look at on average across the year, past couple of years, we assist with around 200 Amber Alerts per year. 60% of those are family abductions. Now think about that for a second. To reach the level of an Amber Alert, the child has to be in imminent danger, possibly including death. 60% of the time, it's a family abduction. So those children are in danger. The other percentage of the time, most often, most of those, the remaining 40%, are related to non-family abductions where the child is in danger. Those are the two biggest categories for Amber Alerts.
John, I do have a question because I'm curious about this. Kind of like when you're working homicides, we say, the first 48 hours are the most significant. A lot of people get frustrated when we have a situation like this and an Amber Alert is not issued immediately. Does that help, hurt, or I guess in any way hinder the investigation if there's not an immediate Amber Alert?
No, that's always a concern. But, with all these cases, as I know you all are aware or all too familiar with, these cases are evolving. And initially, when the child's first reported missing, in some cases, certainly not this one, because there's a lot of video evidence to support what occurred in this case. But in some cases, especially with Amber Alerts, when the initial call for law enforcement support is received, they don't have all the information. It takes law enforcement getting there and starting to investigate and realize, hey, wait a second, someone does have a car. Or we do have video evidence that a car was utilized, or we do have a license plate. Think about what an Amber Alert is. An Amber Alert is a call for public action. It's a call for public support. But you need to be able to tell the public what to look out for, something to support that, as well as understanding what type of endangerments the child is under at that time, and to reach the level of an Amber Alert per the state guidelines, per the state clearinghouse.
I get Amber Alerts, and I have to admit to you, I think the percentage chance I'm going to see this person or this vehicle is so small that license plate and that vehicle go right by me and I'd probably miss it. Yeah. But one thing that doesn't miss it is technology. And we've talked on this podcast at length about some of the potential concerns about the expansion of things like flock cameras. But oftentimes one of the greatest defenses of these systems is in missing persons cases, whether it's elderly people wandering away, whether it's children in Amber Alerts, they can be invaluable. And it seems to have been the case here, where we end up with a child who's rescued within 24 hours thanks to that technology. How important are these camera systems for missing children cases?
It's quite a bit. We have a relationship with Flock Safety. They're a wonderful partner. And we do utilize them through our Amber Alert system. We send them every license plate that we have when an Amber Alert does go out. And when you look at new technology and how do you harness new technology and use it for good, what we're seeing here is exactly that in action. You're seeing a technology that is new, it's cutting edge, it's somewhat a little scary in some cases, certainly. But if it's used for good and it's harnessed correctly, you get good results, as we saw here in Milwaukee.
We've talked about family abductions and then the non-family abductions. In your experience, have you found that one is more dangerous than the other?
Honestly, every missing child case is dangerous. And I say that, just from what we look at here at the National Center, you can have, children who are listed as endangered runaways, and the threats and the concerns of them being out on the street, and the danger that they face each and every day. Family abductions. As I mentioned earlier, 60% of the Amber Alerts that go out are family abductions, where that child has a taking parent who has the ability and possibly of doing harm to that child up to and including death. Non-family abductions, the ones we were all raised on, right? The non-family abductions of a stranger just taking you from the street and abducting you. And where is my child? And who has my child? Each one has its own, increased dangers. And certainly, it has its own threats that are brought to the table and brought to bear in each and every one.
Obviously, these stranger abductions are the ones that play on people's and parents' fears, I think, the most, even if they are not the most common. And it's the timing of having you here is really something because of what just happened in federal court, the overturning of a conviction of the man who was convicted of killing 6-year-old Aiden Pates back in 1979. If I recall you hearing earlier before we were on, he was the first child ever to appear on a milk carton. Is that right?
He was. Aiden Pates was the first child we put onto one of the first children we put onto a milk carton. And honestly, his case it marked a heartbreaking turning point for our nation. His disappearance sparked a movement that changed how we protect and how we search for missing children, and ultimately it led to the foundation. It was one of the foundational cases that led to the creation of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children as we know it today.
I think about that, and it was Adam Walsh also. His disappearance played into the creation of your organization. And obviously, Adam Walsh leads to America's Most Wanted. We still have Wisconsin's Most Wanted. It's a big part of our coverage, and it often results in finding people who've committed terrible things. But I think back to those ended badly. Those ended the worst way possible. And I look at what happened in this case and think it could have been so much worse. Do you look at this case and say, I mean, you hear in what you do, you've heard some pretty awful stuff, I'm sure, but do you hear this one and go, sounds familiar, or wow, that one's kind of wild for me?
You know, this one, in just hearing the backstory of what y'all have going on in Milwaukee, this one's kind of wild. But I'll be the first to tell you, since the start of the National Center for Missing Exploited Children, we've assisted law enforcement and families with nearly 500,000 missing child cases. And I'll be the first to tell you, not one of them is just like the other. Each one has different issues, different intricacies and investigative measures, and has to be taken at face value. If we look back at say Adam Walsh's case, John and Reve Walsh, they started the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. They were the founding voice, and they still sit on our board of directors, so they're still very active in the fight to protect children. And just an amazing group of people. And the drive and determination that they bring to the table in helping keep kids safe is absolutely amazing. But the changes over the years and the advancements in technology have really brought us to where we are today and provided us more tools that, yes, with hindsight, you can always look back at Adam's case or Eitan's case and say, if we had this then, would the circumstances have been different? Goes through my mind constantly. Where I'm thinking is, what do we need in the future to protect more children down the road?
Yeah, how do you guys keep up? I mean, that's one of the things where it's like, we go from milk cartons and now you guys have grown and expanded and you have different divisions. And just, are there a couple examples you can give that have just shown how you guys have, morphed as the years have gone on?
Yeah, quite a bit. First and foremost, our poster distribution, quite a bit of change over even the past couple of years. We have QR codes that let people search within 50 miles of where they're standing, where their IP address resolves to. Our exploited child division has grown immensely over the past couple of years with all the issues going on online. As an organization, we stand there and we look at what we have today and we look at what's coming at us tomorrow and think, what technologies do we need to have in place to best protect children who are out there? Hey, we're a nonprofit organization. We have a lot of flexibility in how we work with private sector, and thankfully and rightfully so, because we have those relationships with big organizations like your Googles and your Metas, that we can talk to them and understand what technology is coming and start to think forward on how we can better protect children in the future. It gives us a huge advantage on how to help protect children, help families understand that technology, and help law enforcement with new and creative tools to help find missing children when they do go missing.
Yes. Go ahead, Bria.
When you talk about tomorrow, because this is something that's literally been on my mind since this has happened, at what point, how often do you see that children are reunified with their families after such an incident like this? Because we have this 7-year-old who may not have seen his parents or his loved ones since he was snatched off of a bicycle.
Yeah, the situation you have going on is unique, and it's got a lot of certainly investigative issues that are currently unraveling in the news today, and certainly law enforcement's working hard on them. This case is unique. Yes, the hope is to get them back with family members. We have an entire family advocacy division who works with families, during a missing child event as well as after a child's recovered, because that child's gone through, for lack of a better, hell, during their time of disappearance. And how do you reintegrate them to the family and make sure that they have the support model that they need to be successful and later in life?
I feel like the stereotypical kidnapping situation we think of from the movies is a child who's taken and held for ransom. Often, even stranger abductions are not necessarily for ransom. It might be a sexual predator or something like that. How common is just this, that's a stereotypical Hollywood child taken and held for ransom, which is what happened here?
Yeah, it appears to be what did occur here. We saw this very similar in the case in upstate New York outside of Albany in fall of 2023, where a young girl riding her bicycle around a campground was abducted and held for, and a ransom note was put in the family's mailbox for around $50,000. They are rare cases these days. Where a child's abducted for a ransom. Now, we do track ransom cases when we're assisting law enforcement with a case. When we're talking with a family, if we hear the word ransom, or if we understand that a ransom is being demanded, we certainly track that, make sure the FBI is aware, make sure local law enforcement's aware of it. We see more scam ransoms than we do actual ransoms, and we don't see that many, to be completely honest. In our whole existence, looking back, probably under 300 is what I'm talking about. But majority of them are scams. But honestly, at face value, they have to be taken seriously initially and investigated by law enforcement to understand which is the best way to support the investigation.
I don't mean to be repetitive. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to be repetitive here, but I just want to make sure I heard you right. You're saying going back over the years, maybe 300 cases of actual children taken for ransom?
That's what we have for the cases that we've assisted with. Yes.
I mean, that just makes this all the more remarkable that this really is an unusual situation.
It very much is. It's not that common, to be completely honest. And honestly, when you look at the ransom demands where that turned out to be scams, most of the time it is when a parent on social media is looking for their child, makes their own poster, puts their own cell phone number, their own contact information on it, and it makes it out into the public domain. And then
someone takes advantage of that
scam ransom message. That's why we assist. One of the most powerful tools that we have is assisting with a poster. We could send it far and wide, and we can help run that interference to funnel those tips and leads to law enforcement where they need to be investigated.
So we see the movies all the time. This is happening. They're negotiating. Is there ever do people actually ever get the ransom? I mean, maybe we could stop.
Probably want to know. That's a good
right
question.
now.
Yeah.
Do people ever? In this case, they didn't even maybe get a call back. But do people ever actually get the ransom that they're seeking?
From the cases that we're aware of, we don't have that level of detail. For the ones that we are aware of, that is not the case. Usually the FBI and other federal agencies, as well as local law enforcement, are heavily involved, but we do not see that outcome.
It doesn't seem like an effective strategy. I'm not saying there's ever an effective strategy to try to get money illegally. But anyway, John Bischoff, there's so many things I could ask you, but I asked for this interview yesterday. They were able to get you scheduled. I'm so grateful you were here today. Thank you for being on Open Record.
Oh my goodness. I appreciate what y'all are doing. And if there's anything else you need, by all means, reach out to us. We're here to support you.
John Bischoff with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We will come back on Open Record and go off the record right after this. And it is time for us to go off the record. This is the part of the podcast where we get a little more casual and have a little fun by answering a question she has prepared. We have not prepared for it.
It's been a minute. I've been not here for 2 podcasts. I kind of forgot how to do it. But just kidding. Here's my question.
That's okay. Big font.
Well, this was supposed to be for one when I was off. Well, you had old eyes. This was for when I wasn't supposed to be here. Anyway. Okay. So obviously we all are in this business now. But we didn't start in this business when we were much younger. We probably all had our first job. And I don't mean TV job. What was your first job where you...
Like where I pay taxes or like where?
No, sure. I mean, you just got you got a paycheck or you got paid.
It's fine. Cash on the table.
Whether it was babysitting, but maybe the next one. I first started when I was a teenager and I worked at Kohl's department store in Waukesha. And I worked in the women's section.
Oh, so you were
I was an associate. Okay. Oh yeah. And then I cleaned out the fitting rooms, which gave me a whole new appreciation. For making sure when I was done at a fitting room, on my own when I was shopping personally, to hang things and bring them to that station where they can put.
It's like when you're dining
People
out
are
with the
savage.
former waitress that's putting everything.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
That was probably back before the 30% off, right?
I don't know, man. I got a discount from working there, so man, I was living the Kohl's life, Kohl's cash, all that. So
when I worked at Marshall's, they would let you cash your check there.
Oh shoot!
So then you could just go buy whatever.
That's so
did
dangerous.
They do that?
No,
oh, it was very dangerous.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
It's crazy.
Okay, what was your first job though?
My first job, I was 16. I worked at a place called Incredible Pizza Company. It's kind of like a Dave and Buster's, maybe just for kids, just for teens and kids. So it was
like a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes,
kind
a Chuck E. Cheese, but and higher up for like maybe teenagers would want to go.
Okay.
So you would have like stuff for kids and teens.
So did you work there and did your friends come and see you?
I was a busser.
Okay.
The buffet was $2.50 with my employee discount. So me and my friends would go there and like hang out.
Eat so much pizza.
But I love that job. But I was walking around cleaning tables, and then I would go clean the bathrooms, which was not.
See, that one of my questions, did you ever have to mop the floors?
I had to do everything.
Okay, because
Grunt
it
work,
wasn't my first job. It was my second job. I'll tell you my first in a minute. But the second job, I worked in a Schnucks, which is a grocery store chain in St. Louis.
Oh, I love Schnucks.
Schnucks Station Restaurant. They had a restaurant that was part of it, and I would have to come in and I was dishwasher, but I would have to do the buffet on Sundays, and people would throw all their cigarette butts in the coffee, and then they'd all come back, and it grossed me out.
In the coffee?
Like because they'd finish it, and they just flick their cigarette out in the coffee instead of in an ashtray. This is back when you could smoke in
Yeah, of
places.
course, yeah.
And then after I got done, I would have to mop the floors, and I said after that, I was like, never want a job again where I have to mop floors. And I got hired one day at Rack's Roast Beef, and I asked that first day, I said, do I have to mop the floors? And they said, if you close. And I said, never mind.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Wow, you didn't even explore
No,
the
I
option
didn't.
of not having
Did
to
not.
close? Okay.
Did not. My first job though was actually at a Baskin Robbins ice cream.
Oh,
and
Such a fun job.
Like a soda jerk?
It sounds fun. It wasn't because I got
so many flavors.
They started me and they were short, so they didn't really train me. So I could scoop ice cream. That's not hard.
Yeah.
But when you had to make the malts or the shakes, they didn't teach me how to do that. And I would always make them at the wrong consistency.
Okay.
Or the spinning blade would cut the wax cup or whatever it was. And people were lined up out the door. And I was working by myself. And I'm sweating. And I'm covered in ice cream. And they're angry. And I made $3.35 an hour.
Okay.
It wasn't worth it.
Now I can ask you a question I've always wanted to know. What is the difference between a malt and a shake? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
The
I think
malt-
it's
the
something
malt
with the
has
malt
malt
powder.
powder.
It's malt powder. It was a malt.
Okay.
Yeah, so a
it
shake
was
is, I believe a
yeah.
shake is ice cream and milk.
Yes.
Okay.
It was
And
the malt
yeah.
powder, but I don't really understand what that did to make it.
Malt
Yeah.
powder is so good. Are you kidding me?
I don't
Malt-
understand the
No,
difference.
there is a
I
difference.
like malted milk
And
balls, but I
Eric-
don't have to make them.
No.
What is the difference?
It's a different flavor.
Okay.
So malt powder gives it a different flavor. Malts are far superior to shakes. Cops
Okay.
Custard does malt right.
Why
Let me
didn't
just
you
say that.
train me when I was
Well,
in
Eric
my
and
first
my
job?
husband and I, we will go places and we're like, well, let's get a malt. And Eric's always like, I don't know how it's going to taste. We're like judgy when it comes to malts. Like,
Is it
I'm
like does it make it thicker? Like, what's the powder? Is it sweeter? Is it, what is it?
no, it just has like, it's a little sweet, but it has
Okay.
a different, it's a malt flavor. Yeah. Have you ever had a malted milk ball?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like a
the-
Whopper?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love
That's what it tastes like. It's
Dave, I want to know what
Okay.
Dave's first job was.
My first job, I was self-employed essentially until college. We painted houses, me and a bunch of friends.
okay.
Which, looking back on it now, is kind of insane that somebody would hire a bunch of 16-year-olds to paint
Were
their
you
house.
insured?
No, of course not.
Insured, bonded, no.
Oh, and we,
Most kids your age, they would at that age they would mow lawns.
Yeah,
But you were like, I'm painting the house.
I was going to say that.
yeah. So we did that for like 2 or 3 summers, I think. And
Did you do a good job, or
Oh, no,
was it
this-
like I would?
Like mediocre.
I never.
no,
would've-
it was fine. We got better as it went along. And I think our last summer we showed up at a job, and there was another guy doing gutters there. And we come back on Monday, and he's got a brand new truck, and we're like, "What happened to your other truck?" He goes, "Oh, I'm getting rid of it." And so we bought it from him for $50.
Oh. And now you have a truck for your business.
Yeah, so we kept it. We kept this just beater truck for 3 months and
Did
got
you
rid
have a
of it.
business name?
We did, but I can't remember.
Oh,
what it was.
darn.
Oh, I
I
thought
don't
it
know,
was
but I was waiting. Yeah.
Something you couldn't share.
Do you still paint? I'm curious.
Oh God, no! As a matter of fact, I just hired somebody last month to paint my living room because I just looked at it and went, "No, I'm not doing this by myself anymore."
You know, you guys were probably like the OG college pro painters. You know, like those
Yes.
college kids
Totally,
that would come
totally.
around. Yeah.
What is the movie company? It's like Brothers or something
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
Like the-
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There's a couple.
We were
quirky
college
ones.
pro without the pro.
Oh, you were
College
just.
painters.
Yeah.
I did have my job after that. I worked in a movie theater, and I just have to tell the story quickly. I was so dumb. I worked at the concession stand, and I remember having the big cup, the fountain drink, and I had to fill it for them. And I remember having a cough, and I always thought, you cover your cough. I coughed right into the cup and went to fill up the drink. And a woman looked at me. She didn't even say anything. She looked appalled. And then I went,
Wait, did
oh,
you
I'm
just
sorry.
measure
I'll
the
get you
soda?
another
Oh,
cup. And I
oh
still
my.
think about that to this day, what an idiot I was. But anyway.
So good.
It happens.
It happens. Yeah.
It happens.
We're all
all right.
human.
We're out of time. We got to wrap things up when we come back after this. That is all the time we have for Open Record today. If you have a topic you would like us to discuss on the podcast, an issue you think we should investigate for Fox 6 News, send us an email to fox6investigators@fox.com. As always, thank you to the people who make this podcast possible. Sarah, Bria, thanks again both for being here. Dave Machuda behind the scenes there, and also our chief photographer, Kale Zimney. With that, I'm Brian Polson. We'll be back next week.